Hi, I'm Reed. This is Crownland Publishing. We're a narrative gaming channel, and I have just received 100 subscribers, so yay me. Pretty excited. And so we're going to do a Q&A, which I'm told is a kind of internet tradition of questions that I've received here in the comments, on the Facebook group, and on Twitter, of which I'm on all of those things, and you can find me. So let's just get on with it. Scott from Tasmania asks, so how would you do a Suicide Squad-inspired fantasy game? Well, it's pretty easy, and I think that this advice will go for more than just fantasy-based games as well. But first of all, you need to be upfront with your players because they're, generally speaking, people are quite conservative. They want to keep their characters alive. And in a game where you know that they're all going to die, you've got to encourage them to die. And I think the way to do that is that you say to them, look, either you bring 3 characters of a certain level to the game so that everyone has a fairly large amount of actual PCs at the table. This is not necessarily hello, my dog has just walked in. This is not necessarily the best way to do it because that many characters on the actual table, that many PCs, that many miniatures, if you use them, can be overwhelming. And to me, that feels more like a war game than a PC, than an RPG. So the way that I would actually do it personally is that I say to them, okay, look, you've got 6 character levels divided up amongst at least 2 characters. And so this way that they can decide, do they want to invest in one character who they really wanted to survive to the end of the adventure? Do they want to have 6 first level characters who can die? So the idea is that every time one of your characters dies, you have a new one subbed in ready to go. So do you prefer to be more of an elite killer, high level, 5th level character? Or do you want to have like 5 chances to comedically die? That is, I think, the key to making the Suicide Squad game. But you don't just want to kill them. You want to kill them in funny and interesting ways. It's got to be ironic. It's got to be grotesque. It's got to be really quite something that you want your PCs to actually walk into. So take any regular adventure. Go into a tomb, raid the castle, dark elf caverns, all that sort of stuff. First of all, if you're the kind of DM like me who doesn't really bother with traps very much, think about traps. Traps are fantastic for a game like this. And then you want to get particularly horrible monsters who are famous for their gruesome deaths. I like stuff like purple worms, getting swallowed and dissolved. Terrible. Ankeg, the giant ant lions, horrible giant spiders, cannibal halflings, whatever. The whole point is to add a bit of dark comedy, so feel free to indulge your morbid side. And also kill a PC quite quickly if you can, and act like it was no big deal, so people understand that we're acting out a narrative where a lot of people died during the making of this story. But setting up the game where the players at the table understand that it's okay if your character dies because, there's another one just literally just tagging in, you'll be okay with this cool Suicide Squad game. And other than that, just steal the basic setup. Like, you've got a curse on you, and if you don't do the mission, the gods will shoot you in the face with a laser. Pretty easy. Moving on. Dave E asks, what makes a good magic system? First of all, no finer world-building tool than magic in a fantasy game. So anything that really fits in your setting and boosts it and makes it feel more like a fantasy setting. So if you're really medieval inspired, you're going to want a lot of alchemy, a lot of astrology, a lot of Latin. If you're in an Asian setting like India, you might want to look up concepts like prana and siddhis and mantras, the things that these people would recognize as their occultism, which of course changes the way that characters at your table will relate to their magic using PCs. If it's all shamanism, are they going to want to get out there and shake bones and chant and dance? If it's all very, very formal and scientific, are they going to maybe think of themselves as spellcasting scientists? You're always going to have PCs that want to do magic, so giving them a unique and interesting opportunity really is going to shape your particular game world. The other thing is that how much and what kinds of magic they encounter says a lot about the adventures that you can run and the experiences that the characters will have, the players rather, will have at your table. So if you're in a Game of Thrones style world, there's no real lightning bolts, there's no real demon summoning. It does happen, but it's very, very rare. Magic is a lot more gentle. Whereas in a Game of Thrones type setting, magic is wild, unpredictable. People are not familiar with it, and every time it comes on screen, it completely changes what's going on. Characters are forced to react to magic. It's a big deal in their world. So again, taking time to think about how much of it, how powerful is it, really will pay off for your particular kinds of adventures that you can run. Actual game-wise, I think that choosing a magical PC means that you are choosing a resource management game. You choose a lot of flexibility. You can always turn invisible and be stealthy like the rogue. You can always cast magic armor and like a fighter. And so you've got a lot of options, and not all other PCs do, but you don't have them as much. All right. I think that spell points and mana, whatever you want to use, is essential for this kind of game. I never use D&D, Fantasy, and Magic because a fighter is pitting their health against their damage. How long can a fighter do damage while taking damage? That, combat-wise, that's their little feedback loop. Rogue types are balancing when the optimal time to risk a big strike is. That's their feedback loop. Okay, I stab him. Okay, bang, backstab. That's what they're going for. That's when they know when to come out and actually make their big move. But magicians, mages, even clerics should be about carefully knowing when to spend big chunks of their magic points. So I think the basic idea of meta magic, putting more resources into your spell to improve it, is ideal. So you can go, okay, well, I'm going to cast a fireball, but I really need to kill all these people, so I'm going to spend a lot of my magic points to improve my fireball. That, to me, really, really works. And that's where you get stuff like the Balrog and Gandalf in Moria, where the Balrog is trying to burst through the door, and Gandalf is like, oh my god, it took so much effort to keep this door shut. That's where you get your mages going like, okay, you need to protect me while I cast the Ritual of Meteors. That's where if I break your spell, it might kill me, and then your mage is like, hair is turning white, nose bleeding, that sort of stuff. So giving them ability to press their magic and giving them ability to risk their own health through the practice of their magic is, I think, a fantastic bit of gameplay mechanics. So there you go. Cool, emotive rules to your magic, and is the ability to control your resources. Paul asks, what are my top 5 favorite systems? I generally don't worry too much about systems. I'm pretty happy with whatever comes along if it's going to work for my particular needs. But Fate, I love it. It requires a lot of fiddling and it requires a lot to be hammered into shape. But I love how it makes creative problem solving and narrative flair fundamental to actually running the game. You cannot play Fate with a boring character. So, love it. First edition Mage, one of the most fun and flavoursome systems of all time. Had a lot of fun with Mage. I always run it like if you've ever read the comic The Invisibles, which is a huge favourite of mine. A groovy band of mystics up against the forces of oppression. I know it's not much loved these days and catches a lot of flack for some reason. I don't know why. But I still love Call of Cthulhu. The sanity mechanic is the best mechanic in all gaming. I still love it. I think the percentage system is really, really easy to understand. Combat's not particularly exciting in basic role-playing, but who's doing a lot of combat in Call of Cthulhu anyway? You die. You die. 1980s TSR Marvel, sometimes called Phase Rip, I really, really love. I run a lot of Exalted style high fantasy, and I often use my now badly kit-bashed kind of Phase Rip games to run high-level fantasy stuff. Fun, fast, dynamic, and flavoursome. I love the big charts. Phase Rip, it's old-fashioned. So if you ever do go and have a read of it, you want to whip it into shape for modern tastes, but it's a fantastic basic system. I know that there's a retro clone of it, but anyway. And even though I hate so much about it, I hate the publisher, I hate the kinds of adventures they run, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, the OSR D&D clone, is a good, basic, old-school D&D game. And if I have to run a down and dirty fantasy D&D game, that's where I go to. Yes, the dreary sexism, and yes, the shock casting of publishing white nationalists aside, it is a very good implementation of OSR D&D. I really like the more swashbuckling kind of 17th century feel that it's got to it, rather than a medieval genre, and it works, but be aware where you're spending your money. Stephen asks, I always argue with my wife about Batman and why he doesn't just kill the Joker. Instead of spending his money on caves and fancy tanks and Kevlar, he should put that into mental health. Conversely, she feels the Punisher is right. He's cleaning up the streets. These lines about social justice and change, they're not really ethical because they're not dealing with the root causes of bad people. So, should Batman kill? Well, Stephen, I agree with you. Batman doesn't kill people because Batman is not a killer. Batman doesn't kill people because Batman has experienced the traumatic pain of that loss. He is not there to... Batman's psychology is not such that he is trying to take out his trauma on other people. He's trying to make them feel as bad as he did as a child, because that is the act of a psychotic, dim maniac. And it is not a character who I would be interested in and I would emulate. Batman is trying to stop people experiencing the pain of losing loved ones. And I would say that he's trying to stop even bad guys from feeling the pain of losing loved ones. him as a private citizen murdering people is not the solution to anything. And sometimes writers have taken this on. Sometimes this has been pretty explicit in the comics. If I kill Joker, where will I stop? That's a psycho Batman. Who cares about that? Batman doesn't kill because... Alright, ask yourself this. Where do most Batman bad guys go when he's finished kicking him in the head all day? Sometimes they go to jail, sure. Penguin's a greedy scumbag who's acting out of spite and malice and greed. But the really culturally significant Batman baddies, Joker, Harley, Riddler, Johnny Cheeseman, Scarecrow, Beanbag, Two-Face, the Painter, they go to Arkham Asylum. And underneath all the gothic tropes, all the bat demons and the ridiculous choices in hiring security guards, Arkham is a place to heal. Batman doesn't kill people because Batman understands ultimately that his enemies are sick, and sick people don't need being murdered, they need help. Because either mentally ill people deserve to be treated as they are sick, or they don't. I know which side of that question that I am on. Our society should not be punitive. Our society should be redemptive. Batman isn't out for revenge on crime. I know he says, I am vengeance all the time, but is he? Because he's not out for revenge on crime, and that doesn't even mean anything. That's like me declaring a war on lunch. Batman is out to help people, even the bad guys. Now, edgy young lads and pop-eyed reactionaries might hate the idea, but to me, that's what actually prevents Batman being that terrible stereotype of, he's just a rich man who goes out and beats the mentally ill. Boring. He's helping people. And by the way, the Wayne Foundation does actually do a huge amount of charity work and outreach, and there's loads and loads of social programs that they run. And yes, I know he's a billionaire, but it's just a comic, man. So is the Punisher right, though? Is it really right for a man to decide that he alone can deal out that terrible final judgment? Would it be okay for cops to kill people if they decided that they knew who needed to be killing? What about if you're really sure your neighbor who you know smokes weed, which is illegal? Is it okay to kill him? I mean, he's doing something illegal, right? Is there a list you can make of how evil a person has to be before you get to kill them? Should you account for their mental illnesses or their traumatic childhood abuse before you decide that it's okay that the Punisher killed them? It also has to do with the kinds of narratives. Ultimately, Batman is a children's character. We don't want to encourage children that executing people we disagree with is okay. There is that, and the Punisher has never been a superhero. He just lives in a superhero universe. But ultimately, it comes down, I think, this is that Batman understands that it is not his role to be that person who says, I get to end your life. The Punisher says, I don't care what you think. I have taken it upon myself to kill who I like. Batman's good, Punisher's bad. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of the Q&A. Thank you very much for the 100 subscribers. I had to cut out some questions because I've gotten a lot over the last few months. You can join the Facebook group, Crowland Pub. You can join the Twitter, Crowland Pub. You can come and ask me questions anytime. I enjoyed this. It was fun. I will see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.